I'm never turning left again, and here's why. The silence in the car was heavier than the humid Pennsylvania air clinging to us. Sarah's hand rested on my knee, a comforting weight that couldn't quite reach the knot in my stomach. We were headed to Melissa's, a dinner party, a forced attempt at normalcy. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. It was the left turn that did it. Sycamore Lane, 3 months. 3 months since the accident. 3 months since Lily, 8 years old, and her bright red bicycle became a permanent fixture in my nightmares. 3 months since I last felt like a person, not a walking tombstone. You okay, Elias? Sarah's voice was soft, laced with the constant concern that had become her second skin. I swallowed. Yeah, fine, a lie, smooth and practiced. The exit for Sycamore Lane was approaching. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. My vision blurred, the familiar landscape morphing into a distorted reflection of the crash, the blinding headlights, the screech of tires, the sickening thud. Elias, Sarah said, her voice sharper now, you're squeezing my knee. I loosened my grip, forcing myself to breathe. I can't, I whispered. Can't what? I can't turn left, not there. She sighed, the sound laced with exhaustion. I knew she was trying. God, she was trying so hard. Therapy, medication. Forced outings, nothing seemed to break through the wall of guilt and fear that had solidified around me. We can take the long way, she said finally, her voice resigned, through the old county road. The old county road added an extra 20 minutes to the drive, winding through dense woods and forgotten farms. It was dark, isolating. But it was right turns, all right turns. As we drove, the world seemed to shift. Shadows danced in the periphery, taking on familiar shapes, a child on a bike, a flash of red. I gripped the wheel tighter, my breath catching in my throat. Did you see that? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Sarah frowned. See what? Elias, are you sure you should be driving? Just a shadow. By the trees, there's nothing there, honey. But I knew what I saw, or what I thought I saw. The line between reality and hallucination had blurred, twisted into something I couldn't decipher. The next day, I decided to investigate. I drove to the intersection of Sycamore Lane and Blackwood Drive. It looked ordinary enough, a four-way stop, a few houses scattered around, a gas station on the corner. But as I approached, a wave of nausea washed over me. The air felt thick, heavy, charged with something malevolent. I parked across the street and watched. Cars turned left, cars turned right, people went about their lives, oblivious. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, terribly, fundamentally wrong. That night the nightmares were worse. Lily's face was no longer just sad, it was contorted. Her eyes glowed with an unnatural light, her smile stretched into a grotesque grin. The surroundings were different, to a dark, overgrown forest, the air thick with the smell of decay. I woke up in a cold sweat, Sarah asleep beside me. I couldn't go back to sleep. I needed to understand. I needed to know why this was happening. I started researching the history of Havenwood. I spent hours at the local library, poring over old newspapers and historical documents. I learned about the town's founding, its early settlers, its struggles and triumphs. But I found nothing about the intersection, nothing about any accidents, any tragedies. Then I stumbled upon a reference to Old Man Hemlock. He was the town historian, a recluse who lived in a crumbling Victorian house on the edge of town. Legend had it, he knew everything about Havenwood, including its darkest secrets. I found him sitting on his porch, surrounded by stacks of books and papers. He was a frail, wizened man with eyes that seemed to hold centuries of knowledge. "I've been expecting you, Mr. Thorne," he said, his voice raspy. I told him about the accident, about the nightmares, about the strange things that were happening. He listened patiently, his gaze unwavering. When I finished, he sighed. That intersection, he said, has a history, a dark history. He told me stories of strange occurrences, of accidents and disappearances, all centered around that intersection. He spoke of rituals performed by the early settlers, sacrifices made to appease something. "What kind of sacrifices?" I asked, my voice trembling. He shook his head. "Best left buried, Mr. Thorne. Some things are better forgotten." He warned me to stay away from the intersection, to avoid turning left at all costs. "It's a place of misfortune," he said, "a place where the veil is thin." I left his house feeling more confused and disturbed than ever. Was it just superstition, or was there something more to it? The incidents escalated. I was driving home from work one evening, approaching a familiar intersection. A left turn was required. As I signaled, the radio started blaring static. The headlights flickered. And then I saw a fleeting figure in my peripheral vision, a child on a bike. I slammed on the brakes, narrowly avoiding a collision with an oncoming car. The other driver honked angrily, but I couldn't move. I was frozen, paralyzed by fear. When I finally regained my composure, the figure was gone. But the feeling remained, a cold dread that seeped into my bones. I told Sarah about it. She tried to be supportive, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. She suggested I increase my medication, see a therapist more often. "It's the guilt, Elias," she said. "It's manifesting as hallucinations." Maybe she was right. Maybe I was losing my mind. Detective Miller was a weary, seen-it-all cop who'd been with the Havenwood PD for 20 years. He was assigned to investigate a series of minor accidents and strange reports that had been piling up, all centered around left turns. He'd initially dismissed my concerns. "Look, Mr. Thorne," he said, "I understand you're going through a tough time, but there's no evidence of anything supernatural. These are just accidents. People make mistakes." But then the disappearances started. A local farmer vanished without a trace. His truck was found abandoned on Blackwood Drive, facing the intersection. A waitress from the local diner disappeared on her way home from work. Her car was found crashed into a tree just a few feet from Sycamore Lane. Miller started to take notice. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, and my constant calls started to make sense. One night, I decided to confront my fear. I was tired of running, tired of being controlled by this, whatever it was. I was going to turn left, no matter what. I drove to the intersection of Sycamore Lane and Blackwood Drive. The air was still, the streetlights casting long, eerie shadows. I took a deep breath and signaled left. As I started to turn, the world around me dissolved. The streetlights flickered and died, plunging me into darkness. The sounds of the town faded away, replaced by a low, guttural growl. The apparition appeared before me, Lily. But it wasn't Lily. It was something else, something twisted and malevolent, wearing her face like a mask. I tried to accelerate to escape, but the car wouldn't move. The apparition floated closer, its eyes burning with hatred. I screamed. I don't know how long it lasted. Time seemed to warp and distort. When I finally came to, I was back in my car, parked on the side of the road. The streetlights were back on, the town was humming with life, but I was changed. Something had broken inside me. The fear was gone, replaced by a cold, hard certainty. I knew what was happening, and I knew that I was running out of time. I became obsessed. I spent every waking moment researching the history of Havenwood, searching for clues. I needed to understand the rituals, the sacrifices, the entity that dwelled at the intersection. I broke into the town historical society. I found an old, leather-bound book detailing a series of ritualistic sacrifices that took place at the intersection centuries ago. They were performed by the early settlers, desperate to appease a dark god that demanded blood. The sacrifices had stopped, but the entity remained dormant but not dead. And now it was awake, and it wanted more. Detective Miller found me at the Historical Society, surrounded by books and papers. "Elias," he said, his voice tired. "What are you doing here?" I tried to explain, but he didn't understand. He thought I was crazy. "I'm going to have to take you in," he said. As they escorted me to the police car, I noticed something strange. They were subtly guiding me towards a left turn onto Blackwood Drive. "No," I screamed, pulling away. "You can't make me turn left," I struggled, fighting against their grip. They tried to restrain me, but I was too strong, fueled by adrenaline and fear. In the ensuing chaos, I blacked out. When I came to, I was alone, standing at the intersection of Sycamore Lane and Blackwood Drive. The air was thick with an unnatural stillness. The streetlights flickered ominously. I was drawn to the center of the intersection. The apparition of the girl appeared before me, no longer innocent, no longer a child. It was something ancient and terrible, its face contorted with rage. Sarah arrived, running towards me, her face etched with terror. "Elias, please come back to me." Detective Miller appeared behind her, gun drawn, but he seemed disoriented, as if he was in a trance. "Elias," he said, his voice hollow, "you have to make the sacrifice." I looked at the apparition, at Sarah, at Miller. I realized what I had to do. I had to confront my guilt. I had to accept responsibility for the accident. I broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. "I'm sorry," I cried. "I'm so sorry, Lily. It was my fault. I didn't see you." Apparition remained, its eyes fixed on me. It began to grow. I walked towards it, no longer afraid. I reached out my hand, and then everything went black. Sarah was left standing at the intersection, screaming my name. Detective Miller closed the case as an unexplained incident. He couldn't explain what he saw that night. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong with Havenwood. A few weeks later, a new family moved into my house. The father was driving. Approaching the intersection of Sycamore Lane and Blackwood Drive, he signaled to turn left.